Do you have a book idea that you're really excited about, but you don't know how to get started? Well, you are going to love mind mapping because it's an organizational structure that you can use to get a book started, but you don't need any organization. All you need is ideas, and then you just want to splash them out in front of you. So I'm going to use some free mind mapping software on the internet. This is absolutely free. I'm going to share screen in just a moment to show you what mind mapping is. And then I'm going to give you the 4 steps with examples in fiction and nonfiction books to show you how to effectively mind map out a book before you even start your outline. So let's just get started right here. I am going to share screen. So the mind mapping software I'm showing as an example, it's called MindMap. So there are a lot of free internet tools that can show you how to mind map. As you can see, it's just creating bubbles. And so you can go to ChatGPT and ask for great mind mapping software. You can do it on Google. That's what I did. And the one that I thought was pretty simple that I just started with before I did this video is mind map. And you can see it's a free mind map. So here I have a mind map of a book I've already written. Here's the final product, the meaning method. And so what I want to do now is go into the 4 steps of effectively mind mapping a book. This works for nonfiction, but also fiction. Nonfiction is a little simpler, so I want to start here. So you put your book in the center, and I've chosen blue. This is something cool about mind map is you can change the size of the text. You can move your mind map around. If I want to move it, let's see, over here, I can move the whole thing over here. If I want to move it back, I can move the whole thing back. I can move around the little levels so that, let's say I wanted to go to town on the root chakra and I wanted a little bit more space, I could go over there. And so this is a way to just get your ideas on paper so that they're no longer trapped in your head. You're no longer, lugging around the burden of so many ideas, and you can just play. So in this particular mind mapping experiment for a nonfiction book called The Meaning Method, A Spiritual Path to Writing and Publishing, I put the meaning method in the center. And now I want to talk about the 4 steps to effectively mind map a book. So after I had the meaning method in the center, I wanted to go to my major parts or chapters. So the meaning method itself, you can see it takes you down the manifesting system of manifesting through the chakras. Mind mapping gets you into flow, and then this system also gets you into flow. So you can see the first level of mind mapping are just what I thought were the major parts. Now, this was a bit more straightforward for me because the chakra system gave me a system for chapters. But you'll see in the table of contents at this first level where the words are kind of orange, let me get to the table of contents, you'll see that became my major sections. So first, you want to just chunk your ideas in the largest form. Crown chakra is inspiration for a book. Third eye is mind mapping and outlining a book. Throat chakra is expressing your voice. Then the heart chakra is the regular writing practice. We also have solar plexus, which is editing, sacral chakra, which is publishing, and root chakra, which is finances and marketing of a book. And so once you have those basic parts, these are things you play around with. In nonfiction, one activity I like to use to just get started with a mind map are what are 5 steps that will get your reader to the outcome they want. And so once you've got these kind of basic parts in the mind map, you can start to break down the basic parts and flesh out those ideas. So in the heart chakra, which is loving the creative process, I'm breaking it down into finding the time to write, loving the craft of writing, and turning setbacks into meaningful stories. So these are the 3 topics I wanted to address in this heart chakra chapter. And so I just splurted them out onto the mind mapping page. Now, this looks like it has a particular order, but one thing that really helps you get into flow with the creative process is we don't always think about things in order. I think this is one of the most challenging parts when people sit down to write a book. They think in fiction and in nonfiction, well, it should just splurt out from my pen. It should just splurt out onto the keyboard from my mind in order onto the page. But oftentimes you really need to flesh out that idea so you can move things around before you even get started with the outline. And so now I chose certain topics. It was pretty easy because I've already written this book that I knew that I wanted to cover in this chapter. If you haven't already written the book, which is the ideal time to use mind mapping, then of course you can put 16 things under this chapter, sleep on it, come back, delete, and then you'll have an easier method to find out how to focus. Now, so we've gone from the first 2 parts, the major ideas for chapters for the book. If you're doing nonfiction, what are the 5 steps that will get your reader to the outcome they want? Then we get into the steps. Often by fleshing out those steps, we understand what chapters are really going to function for the book. And then if there is a chapter of your book that you think you should put in the book, but it's just not getting there, you're just not able to flesh it out, then yes, you want to prioritize, no matter what the order is in the book, you want to prioritize what ideas are just blossoming, are just going out into further and further detail. So first, we break the book into chapters. Second, we break down those chapters into main ideas, and then we start to flesh out the main ideas with details. Love the craft of writing. I'll talk about characters, I'll talk about how conflict serves your writing, and then I'll talk about stakes and significance in that craft of writing section. So that takes you into the 4 steps. First, you come up with the main idea, you break it down into parts, you flesh out those parts, those chapters, and then you add details to the main ideas within the fleshed out chapters. And so as you can see, it gives you even more freedom than an outline to work. So fiction can be a little bit more complex. You're imagining an entire world that you need to make real. So let's go through the same 4 steps, the blue step, the orange step, the pink step, the yellow step. Let's go through the mind map steps. I'm not a sponsor for mind map or anything like that. It was just very easy to use right away. And so let's go through a ghost story. So if you're working in fiction, as you're going to see, it helps to know the genre or category you're in. So here we have Maria Paula's ghost story. And this is just a fictional idea that I decided to flesh out. If you know your genre, then you don't need to break down your fiction story into chapters. This is where mind mapping can help you be even more creative, because we know if we're working on a story, if we're working on a novel, things might not come to us in order. We have a vision of Maria Paula and she is haunted for some reason, but we don't know where to go from there. So what I did in this case are, what are the major elements of a ghost story? So what do we need in a ghost story? We need ingredients. We need characters. We need a house. Ghost stories almost always have some sort of setting for sure, but it's usually a haunted house. We have the ghost background story. If there's paranormal activity or something of that nature, maybe there's an old graveyard that actually was destroyed in order to build this mansion. Maybe there was a mother who lost a child in this house. And so there's always a ghost story behind the haunting, and it's usually revealed near the end. We usually get into the house, weird stuff happens, and then near the end, we find out what's behind that ghost story. So I'll want to develop the ghost's background story. They have to investigate in order to find this ghost's background story. What methods, what are they going to get into in order to find out why their house is being haunted? And so I grouped house and characters together, setting and characters. Then I grouped background story and investigation of background story together, because that's really good to know when I get started. You can do this whether you're working with a thriller or anything else. Just look at the major elements, and then you've got your little orange level. What else is necessary for a ghost story? Initial haunting. What is the first hint that there's a ghost around here? Escalation. It gets worse and worse. Escalation of paranormal activity. And then finally, they have to confront the problem and do whatever they have to do to release the spirits from the house. So at the orange level here, I just splattered onto the paper what ingredients am I going to need in this fiction story in order to make it move forward? There you go. So after I have my orange level, I want to start to just develop what could be behind these ideas. So you can see characters. I've decided to put 3 characters, Luz, Tato, and Flora. I know that they are going to be characters that I want to relate to Maria Paula. And then once I have these major characters, I go to further detail. So Flora, her mother has a shop for witches. That would be fun to, have like a little witch shop. And then Flora is using this as a cover for a black market. So maybe as the house, I'll have a witch shop rather than an actual house. I could change these ideas later. Then Flora is going to be killed in the process of the story. I'm choosing characters that I'm going to lose. Sometimes in horror stories, sometimes in ghost stories, we lose characters. We want to choose which characters make it to the end and which don't. And so you can see that I haven't put in order to my outline. I'm able to move ideas around as much as I want. I'm able to put ideas in. I'm able to, let's say, let's not kill her. Let's keep her alive. There, I can throw that idea out. And so this is a fun way to play, to get started with your story. So in fiction, we start with the idea for the story. Then we break it down into the main ingredients. Then in each ingredient, we're able to answer questions about the primary ideas within that ingredient. So I used characters as an example. And then at the 4th level, we put in details around the character. I think if you get much further into the mind map, it's actually helpful to start putting it into a story plot line. So this is the story plot line table that I use for both fiction and nonfiction, because the one thing fiction and nonfiction have in common is that you're taking people through a journey. And so understanding your protagonist or your reader and moving them through a plot table is so helpful. So after you start to get to those 4 levels that I showed you on the mind map, start fitting it into this table. And of course, I've provided a free download for that table. You can sign up right down in the link below. It's the free outlining template. Use your mind map and then just plug it into the template. So every single Friday, I put out a new video to help you move forward with your book. So I hope you take some time this weekend to work on your creativity, and I will see you next Friday. So much love. Bye.